Hey, Peter.
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm getting by.
Good.
Did you guys
Good,
stay
good.
dry on Blyman Circle there last week?
Yeah, I did. In fact, we all are enjoying the relative paucity of snow. So
Yeah,
and I'm sure you and your gang are too.
I certainly am. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they are and they aren't, because it's good overtime and whatnot. But
Okay. Well, I'm sure there are different points of view. Yep.
yeah. Well, I think they like the storm, the snowstorm, better than the closing down all the roads and picking the sand off the beach, off the road. Those are different storms. Not all storms are created equal.
So do we have more snow to look forward to this weekend, or are we going to miss all the stuff that seems to be falling in Buffalo and every place?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get out of it pretty light again. But
Pretty good. Yeah, the weather report seems to be, cold, but
yeah,
that's cold winter, I think.
yeah, that's normal.
It's kind of the way
it's
it
gonna
goes.
be a big heating bill this month.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you heat with, Dean?
Oh, natural gas.
Yeah, me too. Or
I
actually
know it's a
propane.
fossil
Actually,
fuel. I think we're gonna be stuck with that one for a while for natural gas. Yeah.
I do too. I do too. I think we're deluding ourselves to think otherwise.
Right. Peter, did you get an agenda for tonight?
I did.
Okay, because I didn't receive anything from Sarah, and I went through the
I had
town
to go
website.
to the town agenda center.
Yeah. Oh,
And just to give you the heads up, it's DPW all the way.
I knew that.
Review of minutes. And that's basically it.
I didn't get it. Did you get any minutes? No. Yeah, so we probably won't get, okay.
No.
No, I know, things are getting crazy with the ZBA.
Oh, goodness. I'm not quite sure I understand, but anyway, there we are.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Becky.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Chuck.
Chuck, how's that baby? Not so much a baby, huh?
No, he's a monster. You'll probably hear him later. I went down one story. I'm in the basement tonight, so probably still hear him.
Trying to hide out, huh?
Yep. He's doing good though. He's fun. He's got more days on the mountain already this year than Nate. So
Seriously,
tough luck.
Well, yeah.
we went up to Sugarloaf for between Christmas and New Year, so
Oh,
he
so
got a
you
couple
picked
days
a
on
cold,
there.
that's a cold one, that mountain.
It was
That's a
actually
lot.
warm.
That's a
that
long
week.
drive too.
Yeah, we have a camp up there, so, we don't have to.
Nice.
Do you have a place up there, Chuck?
Yep, we have a camp, it's like 3 miles past the access road towards Stratton.
Yeah.
Familiar with the area. That's where I'm from originally.
Ah, okay. No, I didn't know that.
But it was unseasonably warm between Christmas and New Year, so that was good. But I didn't make him go out last weekend when it was a high of
Yeah, last
-5.
weekend, my son goes there too. He lives in Brunswick,
Oh, okay.
and it was cold. At least that's the way he reported it to me.
Yeah, cold would be an understatement when it's -5 for a high.
I was looking for recruits for the ZBA site visits. It was brutal. Looks like I have a Peter, Dean, and Andy. And myself. Let's see if anybody, it's just, oh, Mark's on. Expecting Maury and Mike. We'll see. Give it another minute. Greg, did I see the planning board on this same thing again tonight? Or
No,
was that a
not tonight.
different day? Okay, okay.
Library, I think, was tonight.
I it came up and I said, oh, no, not again.
Yeah, we don't need a repeat of that.
It was such a short meeting.
That's funny, Sarah. I think it was 9:59 last night.
I know.
Place, but I didn't mark down the question. I mean, the seconds.
I got about 5 hours of sleep. It's a little tensed up. I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:01 PM on January 20th. It looks like we have Peter, Dean, Andy, Mark, and myself, so I have a quorum. It looks like Andrea is just connecting. And I expect Mike and Maury will connect, but maybe they're running behind. So the first item on the agenda is Chuck and Nate. We want to review your fiscal year 23 operating budget for all of the areas, the DPW, water, sewer, sanitation, snow, facilities, etc. And then also look at the capital budgets out for the next, I think, maybe you've put in for 5 years, and then the enterprise funds, hoping that maybe we'll be able to vote on some of those items. So do you want to start going through the budget, or do you want us to ask questions?
I mean, I can give you just a quick kind of, I mean, I'm sure you guys have been through it. There's not any substantial changes year over year. I'm sure Greg's already kind of filled you guys in that, we're looking to bring on facilities kind of within the DPW umbrella. That would be mostly, Nate's day-to-day, with the facilities and keeping up with, regular maintenance and also whatever capital implications we have there. Beyond that, we're looking at to add custodial services full-time, which I'm guessing you guys have heard about already. So those are kind of like the newish type things, even though I'd say that, for the most part, we've been handling most of the facilities and facility planning, for the last couple of years. So I think that's more just a procedural thing and seeing it, presented that way. I think it'll be a lot easier for us to track, budgets and, make sure we're keeping up with the different facilities, because we'll be looking at the budgets, constantly, in the future. So I think that's the general gist of it there.
Can I ask you one question on the facilities budget?
Sure.
It looked to me like there was a segment of Singing Beach that's not transferred to that budget. Is there a reason?
I guess I'm not sure what didn't come over, but I'm guessing it has more to do with the staffing at the beach or the general like summer things that Cheryl has going on there.
I thought it was regarding the beach house. Do you know, Greg?
It did say that it's $3,500 for the maintenance of the beach house.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's like, summer activity at the beach house where she has to get the septic pumped or the irrigation turned on, stuff like that.
Okay.
Certainly that could come under us, but that's a pretty minor thing that, in the long run, I think, the stuff that Cheryl takes care of every year on a constant basis when they're, gearing up for the season, that's fine to stay with her. But I think, when it comes to the long-term capital implications, that should probably stay with me and Nate. So.
Okay.
Chuck, when I look at the DPW budget, that is its own operating budget, I see quite a growth in professional services. What does that represent?
You mean year over year or just like in the past few years or?
Year over year. And I just wondered, is there something?
16.5. Well, I mean, it's a $5,000 incremental thing. I think it's more just to track where we've been in the past few years. So, holding other things constant and giving that a bigger bump seemed to make more sense.
It doesn't reflect a larger approach to the use of professional services, I gather.
No, I think I had been tapping into that line a lot more for when we hire contractors to handle stuff on the on some of the highway stuff, maybe here and there on the I think it mostly has to do with the drainage infrastructure and cleaning things out, or we have additional when we call in contractors to handle those things.
Yep.
That's what eats up that line. So that can be $1,000 to $2,000 a pop. So going up $5,000 doesn't really do much.
No, it's not a big number. I just wondered if it was reflective something larger. And the athletic fields that are deleted from the budget, they're going to where are they going?
So I think both of those lines, the athletic field and the park and beach maintenance lines, went under the facility. So it's generally
they're going to
still with us. It's just in a different spot now.
Yep.
So I guess just to finish that, so I think there shouldn't be any real surprises there in the operating side. I would even go so far as to say the water and sewer enterprise funds in terms of the annual operations haven't substantially changed. I did move around some money and try and probably add up a little bit when it comes to the water treatment plant side, because we've been having to do a lot more testing and monitoring. So there's a lot more lab work. Chemical prices have definitely increased. So that kind of hits water and sewer. So, I don't think there was any, catastrophic budget busting type things, but, it is something that I'm keeping an eye on.
Are we doing enough to keep this sewer operation in proper maintenance? I know there's some very large projects that I think we voted on in November with maybe together with the selectmen that come out of those federal funds. But how would you evaluate the condition of the sewer treatment facility?
Peter, let's stick with the operating budget first and then go to capital. Okay, just to keep us on track, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
No, I'll hold the question.
Thanks.
So my next is snow and ice.
Right.
So global warming is changing our snow and ice. It's happily very stable, but just less of it, right? I mean, there's just less snow and ice.
Well, so, in general, I know Andrew is going to jump in on me, but, for the most part, what we do is we keep that constant, because I think it makes the accounting world easier, because we're allowed to overrun those lines and make good on it on the back end if they go over, if we have a bad winter. So rather than, receive the money in your tax bill, beginning of the year, quarterly, we'll just make it up on the back end if we have a bad winter. So I think
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
generally
Andrea,
interesting.
Andrea, what's the rule for us to be able to decrease that?
You have to work with the DOR and kind of get approval from them, and do you have to do an analysis over the last 5 years of what you've spent. And if
Okay.
you spend significantly less than what you've been budgeting, and you're showing a deficit year over year, then yes, or a deficit, but overrun every year, then yes, you could reduce it. And I actually did that last year, and I averaged the last 5 years, and we average about $200,000
Okay,
for those 5 years. So I think we're in a good spot.
so you continue to look at that, and we'll go
I
to
do,
them when it's
that's my thing,
appropriate.
Yes, because I know people say, oh, well, expenses go up and things like that. So obviously that would be so nice, but I just concerned because as soon as you increase that budget, the DOR is very heavy on making sure that you're doing that appropriately. So because they don't want you to increase your budget and then overtax or just make mess of it. So
Well, and we did increase
the
it a
same.
number of years ago because we
yeah,
were
yes.
going over, and that might not have been a smart thing, but that's what we did.
I mean, it's been working because, like I said, we've averaged around the 200,000. So
Okay.
we're in a good spot right now. So I'll definitely let you know if it changes.
Okay, thanks.
Are we all set for plow drivers and everything? We have enough for that? No, there's been problems throughout the state.
Yeah, I mean, we have our local guys, first of all, we have the DPW crew. They're, called in on a regular basis for especially, just the, minor ice on the roads or whatever, coming in salt. So that's all, town guys. But then, our normal contractors, local guys, the Philiuses of the world, the McEachran or Stoneworks, they're happy to stay with us, and, I think things have worked out. So.
So that's good. Okay.
Did you have to use contractors in the storm on January 7th or not?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay.
And Chuck, in the sanitation budget,
Yep.
are the shifting of numbers just between lines, that is between the collection line and the disposal line, does that reflect higher tipping fees, but maybe more efficient collection? Is that what's going on?
No, well, so yeah, that's one of those ones where we're held to the bottom line of the combination of those two, but the breakout between them has never been accurate. So this is just, I took the opportunity because we were on this kind of new system to revise those numbers. But the bottom line is, our contract with JRM is a 5-year contract. They actually didn't include any escalation from year to year, so that's a good thing. But the Wheelabrator contract for the disposal of the rubbish is going up 3.5% per year over that same time frame. So that's a little bit more. So in general, the bottom line, it will be stable, but there is a little shuffling going on.
So the collection is a set fee?
Yep.
Okay.
So I mean, just to give you kind of the flavor, I guess, the curbside collection with JRM, the new contract is $300,000 a year. So that's basically, they send 2 trucks 2 days a year, one for recycling, one for trash, and twice a week throughout the year. And that's $300,000. They bring the trash truck back to Wheelabrator and dump that on the floor. We get charged the tonnage going out. That we pay roughly $80 a ton, $87 a ton now. So $87 a ton. Then the recycling truck goes back to JRM facility. We pay them $60 a ton to sort it out. And then we have, the rest of those lines go to Black Earth for compost, as well as, picking up dumpsters and disposing of dumpsters throughout town, throughout the year, that kind of stuff, the transfer station. So JRM picks that up, brings it to the same places. It's just, a little bit different fee structure. At the end of the day, it's about $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
The 300,000 per year for a collection, what is that about per ton? What does that come out to?
So so that's just their fees for their guys and their trucks to come to town. So the tonnage for the for say Wheelabrator, we're about $100,000, and the tonnage is, less, like I said, it's about $87 a ton. So we're about 1,100 tons a year in the garbage, and it's pretty close to even for the recycling. It's about 900 tons per year in the recycling tonnage. So, those are just round numbers, but that's generally where we're at.
Okay.
Are we improving on the recycling, Chuck? Are we doing more, or is that just fixed?
Let's see, I don't know if I have that number in front of me. Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but like I said, the price is going up. So even if the tonnage stays the same, the price is still going up. Since I've been here, there hasn't been a large dip in the rubbish tipping fee. That's pretty constant between 1,000 and 1,100 tons a year. I will say there was quite a bit of basement cleaning the first year of COVID. So those numbers probably did have a spike in the middle, but other than that, I mean, then that's all. We do sell a corresponding amount of orange bags when the tonnage goes. When the tonnage goes up, theoretically, we're sending more. People are buying more orange bags.
Chuck, on the sanitation page, which is, I think, just one or two before that, I just noticed it, not huge dollars, but 43% decline in operational expenses and a 22% decline in the pay-as-you-throw bags. All in favor of declines. I just wondered how those happened.
Yeah, I think it's just because that's a budgeted line from year over year, and it's drawn down especially for the orange bags. Andrea can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, we're getting a check from the Waste Zero people that make our orange bags and sell them. So it's kind of a revolving fund almost. And then what was the other part of that question? The operational. I think people took liberties with my budget because we're supposed to have Black Earth take over the operations at the transfer station, and so they're banking on that project being done by January.
I see. Okay.
I'm sure it will be.
I see Andrea.
I'm
So
sure,
if I understand this, then
I'm sure it's much easier for Greg and Andrea to say that than me and Nate.
This is true.
So Andrea, that would all mean that our actual cost for trash bags for F22, where we budgeted 45, is closer to the 21 actual, which was 30 grand.
Yes.
Right. All right. Thank you.
And that's the cost we pay to purchase the bags, right?
Correct.
Okay. And they go to vendors.
They do. Yeah, we have 3 vendors in town that have them and sell them. And then they purchase them from Waste Zero, and then Waste Zero gives us a check. So it's like
Okay.
loop that keeps going around, so.
Yeah. So we don't get anything directly from the vendors anymore.
Correct.
Okay, because we did it at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard because we were trying to keep track of like inventory and how many bags and things like that, and trying to get vendors to kind of cooperate. That was like a little difficult. So we just said, okay, let's change the process so it's easier to keep track of that.
Okay. And Gail, I just want to let you know that Maury's joined. Just for.
So Andrea, how close do you think we are in the bag purchases to the actual tipping fee per ton?
Not close.
I'd have to look at that and talk to you.
Okay, well, I know Greg is hesitant to raise the bag price because it leads to more people, I think, disposing inappropriately of trash.
So I think we take in, I want to say roughly 300,000.
Okay, is that what? Yeah.
In trash bag sales. So that's covering 50% of your total.
Yep. Of your total budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that been about stable? Is that about where we've been over time? Is that roughly 50%?
Yeah, I think so. We did increase the bag fees a couple, 3 years ago. I'm forgetting when exactly.
Mhm.
But we're not covering all our costs by any means.
No, I understand. I was just wondering how stable the 50% sort of estimate is over
Yeah.
time. Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
like a reasonable place to be.
I think it's reasonable going forward because we're on fixed contracts with JRM now, but in the previous contract we had with Waste Management, there was a calculation on the recycling. So when recycling was good, it was probably covering more than 50%. Then when recycling skyrocketed, it was probably covering less. And I think we've kind of settled on 50-50, but it could fluctuate, in 2027.
And I think we've discussed in the past too, given that we have raised the price of the bags and whatnot, and that it is a fairly robust revenue source, keep making sure the quality is reasonable and they don't tear and create more havoc than they're worth, I think is still an important goal.
We did get a letter from
Sure,
them
but
this
important.
year.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, we did get a letter from them, from Waste Zero, our bag company, this year citing, supply chain and cost of resin increases and stuff like that. So that might just be something to keep an eye on.
All right.
Can I just hold one moment? I've got a couple of hand raised from Board of Selectmen, and I think I'll take their questions if you don't mind. Becky?
Hi, thank you. Sorry to interfere in the process. I was just wondering how many bags have to be purchased at one time? I'm guessing there's a minimum, and how many and how much?
You mean with the vendor or with at the Crosby's or whatever?
With the vendor.
So they're keeping inventory and they're charging the vendors. And so when they see that we're low on bags, they'll make a run. Or if they have another community that has orange bags, they'll they'll do the run at the same time. So they're the ones that are optimizing that. We don't say, we need 20,000 bags now. They just say, you only have 5,000 left. So we're going to make a run of, 20,000 or whatever. I'm making those numbers up, but so
Excellent.
we
Thank
don't
you very
have
much.
any control of that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Jeffrey Bodner Turner, did you have a question? Your
No, I
hand
don't.
is raised. Oh, okay.
No, it's just an inadvertently raised hand.
Oh, okay. That happens.
High-fiving.
I had a question about, tracking the revenue versus the expenses of sanitation. Like I looked under the revenue, and I had a question about the 260,000 we have budgeted. Seems a little bit low considering 2020 and 2021. And I was wondering, how is this the time to discuss that as well, or is that under a different general government page?
We can discuss everything with respect to the DPW tonight.
Right. Okay. So it's hard when you have it separated. Well, for me, the way my mind works, I would like to see the sanitation and then the income from it, and the delta is what we pay for it. But it's just a matter of spreadsheeting and doing some cross-referencing. But that was when you mentioned that the trash was 300,000, I was looking it up and I had to go back to the funding sources section. And that was a comment that I had when we were doing general government about the 260,000. Last year it was 320, and the actuals were like 350, which might have been the COVID thing that Chuck was, but it was still higher than that back in 2021. So we probably are undershooting our revenue from trash bags, I think.
I guess I'll let Andrea or Greg chime in on the revenue side, but on the, on the expenditure side, we're pretty locked into these numbers. So I did have a little bit of a movement there between the rubbish and the disposal, because, when we're putting together the purchase orders at the beginning of the year, based on our contract amounts, we will, we're just held to the bottom line. But when we were, the combination of those two lines is really the disposal and the, pickup. And so I guess the numbers that you see now are more reflective of what our actuals are with the contracts. And then, so I think going forward, it will make a lot of sense, and you'll see the, 2 or 3% increase year over year. But in general, like I said, right now we're locked in with JRM long-term, and we're locked in with Wheelabrator for the next 3 years. So those numbers are pretty constant. And then we'll actually probably see a little bit of a decline once Black Earth gets up and running and we're on the new contract with them. So that's not factored in right now, but is something that will be FY24.
Do we have any option other than Wheelabrator?
Nope. When we negotiated that contract, they gave me a piece of paper with numbers for the next 5 years and said, if you can do better, go for it. And basically there's no incinerators or landfills that are accepting more communities. So we're basically
Stuck.
left to the whim of them, or just don't have any trash.
Yeah, right.
Privatize it.
We had a horror show in, I think it was the 80s or 90s with that North Andover trash place. I remember we got in a contract and it was.
Well, so that's Wheelabrator, right?
That's
we're
Wheelabrator.
talking about different. We're still with Wheelabrator in North Andover. It might have been a different company then, but
It was, yeah.
Well, we went through the whole oil embargo and all the rest. And
Right. The
Got
oil
really
prices crashed and the model went to heck about profit. Yeah, we ended up having to pay for that plant to shutter it.
yeah.
Quick question. I know the auditors in the past have had questions just about the whole bag revenue side. Andrea and Greg, are we good on that with the current system? And is that kind of checked off as a non-issue at this point?
It is, yes. We just got our FY21 management letter and it's been considered resolved.
Excellent. Great.
So Sarah, I have a question about water salaries, Chuck, and sewer salaries, each of which look like they have gone down, 19% for water salaries and 16 or something like that for sewer. Is that what's reallocation or realized savings or?
So you might remember, a couple of years ago when we were having this conversation, I was talking about guys that were retiring and coming
Right.
off the books, and we we're
Yep.
going to need to backfill that. So we actually added positions, and that's worked out pretty well on the wastewater side. On the water side, we're still anticipating a retirement in FY22, and actually the guy that's going to backfill that is starting, Monday or the following Monday. So. That's just basically the fourth guy in water and the fifth guy at the plant has now been removed from the budget. And so we're back to, the level staffing that we were 2 or 3 years ago. And so that's generally, what the intent was.
Yeah. So my point is that worked. We had some redundancy for a little bit, but now we're realizing the benefit and we have the staffing back. Should be.
Yep.
That's good.
On the wastewater side, we're set. On the water side, we're cutting it a little bit closer, but we should be good by the time FY23 comes in.
It looks like your overtime budget is increasing. What impacts your overtime budget?
So in general, it's, if there's a 2% raise on the salaries, it's time and a half on overtime. So that's generally, where it comes. And then, from year to year, we might have more, the flushing requirements, that's on the water side. That's mostly where our overtime spent there. On the highway side, that's, cemeteries and whatnot. So it's just mostly trying to balance, kind of what's going on in town. So that's generally what affects it. Don't have.
Will the new water mains have a reduction in the amount of flushing necessary, or is that more just a product of the water itself, or is it, no?
it's good practice to flush every year, no matter what, but we're
Right.
by no means, close enough to say that, our system's brand new. It's still very, very old with a lot of flushing requirements. So,
Just
talk to me
wondering
again,
if-
talk to me again in 30 years and I'll tell you that, we have done enough work, but not there yet.
Will our system last 30 years to get to the point you just talked about, Chuck?
Well, we really have no choice, but I think it's not going anywhere. We'll see it coming. I think Greg can talk to it more, but 4 or 5 years ago, there was breaks, on a monthly basis. I think now we're on 4 or 5 a year, real breaks. We still have some service leaks and whatnot, but the major breaks, I think we've reduced quite a bit. If you start seeing them go up quite a bit, especially where you live, Peter, because you guys are, on the dead end, far out as you can be. So you're affected by most of the breaks more often. So you would definitely be calling the office if we have an issue that needs to be fixed. But I think, we haven't, I don't know if we're transitioning into capital already, but I will say, I think in the 5-year outlook that, we put together and, hopefully we get some additional federal dollars to, add to that. I think we're looking pretty good in the next 5 years. But like I said, we're not there yet.
So you think we're also working fast enough to try to keep ourselves improving and not losing ground against the passage of time on old pipes?
Yeah, the projects we've done to date were the real, bad ones. So Ocean Street, Boardman, those were really bad area. There's a lot of breaks. And they're falling into the ocean. So it was, compounded. We still have a lot of 120-year-old pipe. But it's not in the ocean, so that's better. I'll leave it at that.
Before we move to capital, I'll just kind of check and see if there's other board members who have questions on operating. Andy, do you have any questions?
Sorry, looking for the mute button here. No, I'm good so far.
Okay. Maury?
No, I'm good. This looks great.
Okay.
I had an
Steve?
operational question about,
Okay.
why wouldn't the street lighting be under DPW? Why is it now under general government? What caused that?
I think that's a remnant of when they were buying the lights. That's where they put it. I think we are trying to take that back. Andrea and Greg, did it come back in more of the facilities lines or not yet?
I haven't moved it yet, but it's definitely, it's the account structure is under DPW now. So it will be moving.
Yeah,
Right,
I'd say
and
they
similarly-
generally quarterbacks it, but yeah.
Yeah.
And like the custodial services would seem more fit for the general government side than a DPW, but I guess that's gonna stay under the facilities. That's why it's here.
Yes.
Right, that's the logic. Yeah.
Now, okay, one more, sorry.
All right.
The facilities, why was not the library included in that? Is there a reason why that wasn't part of the facilities budget or transition?
So I thought we were taking over
Yes,
the,
it looks,
the general maintenance, but maybe not so much the building. You can fill that in, Andrea or Nate.
sure. So the library was a little confusing. So we did take that money from the library, but they had outsourced it. And so what we did is we took that expense and moved it into facility salary. So it's just a little harder to see that we did take that money to include the library. in
Okay,
that.
so the facilities
That makes
budget
sense.
is budgeted for the library. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So just to be aware, the library will protest that. They would much prefer, even if we do change who, they would prefer to keep the dollars in their budget because they worry a lot about showing that their budget is growing as the rest of town budget in order to maintain their state certification.
But Greg, doesn't that impact the budget for books? I mean, I thought that the budget for books was a certain percentage of the overall library budget.
Right,
so
that's another
cus-
piece of it.
Custodians out, then the amount that needed to be budgeted for books would go down, and that's always been a source of our concern.
Right, so that's another point that the
Okay.
library folks will make, that, so yes, I think it's supposed to be in the 18% range
Yeah.
of total budget is what you're supposed to be spending on new books, new materials. So they would prefer that those dollars for the custodian remain in their budget so as not to impact that state calculation as well as their book calculation.
We're going to need some very specific information on that, because it seems to me that that's just holding on to the purse strings type of attitude. It may not be in the best interest of the town.
Yeah, I mean,
So the current budget has $6,000 in for building repairs at the library. Is that is that maintenance or is that?
so that's not, we kept that in there this go round.
All right, got
But
it.
what we,
Okay.
but what we did take away is the outsourced custodial expense.
Right. Okay.
Maura, did you have any more questions on the operating budget?
The only question I had was just, I guess for Chuck, if electricity costs change much, or are we pretty much locked in on that? Because obviously water and sewer are probably the biggest uses of electrical power. Are we,
Yeah.
is that, do you worry about that at all on the budget, or is that pretty much
So it's-
small impact?
It seems like we've kept it in line. I do check it, monthly when Andrea gives me my reports. So, right now, yeah, I'm looking at the sewer plant. We're at 15% of budget through December.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, I kind of question if we paid the bill, but, but it's, so we're good.
We do lag behind on that one.
Yeah, so, in my mind, we've, there must have been an energy spike at some point when these budgets were, kind of being evolved. And, they compensated for that. And, I think so far so good. We do have a long-term transmission contract. So I'm not sure when that's up, but, so we were kind of locked in on some of the transmission rates. So yeah, for the most part, we're got it covered.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to jump in, check on that. We pay two different vendors for electricity. So we pay National Grid, and then we get a credit on National Grid, which is based up from Happy Hollow, where we get some solar energy. And then we pay Happy Hollow 85% of the credit. So we're in effect getting a 15% discount. However, the problem is National Grid is very slow in reporting their credits. So a Happy Hollow has to wait. And it's been it was every 2 months, but now it's been about 4 months. So I have all the bills so far. So we're catching up. So that 15% is a little low, but we are still saving on those energy costs. So it's working out well.
Yeah, and so I expect it to be in line. If you look at the year over year, I think we're pretty close. I think there's still a little bit of buffer there between overrunning that line and not. So I think we've generally accounted for it.
Mark, do you have any more questions on the operating budget?
No.
No. So shall we move to capital?
Yep.
So I guess I'll just tee it up, real quick. So in the immediate future, we're showing, so FY23, we're showing kind of similar amounts that we've had in past budgets for highway and the two enterprise funds. We're still keeping up with the roads. We're still keeping up with the storm drains, sidewalks, and then obviously we have larger scale pipe projects and keeping up with both of the treatment plants. We are showing future diving into the backlog at the wastewater plant. I think that's going to be timely, especially as we look at the storm we had last week. we had no issues at the plant, but it's always, one bad storm surge away. So, that's definitely top of mind. Need to keep going with the water main work as we talked about a minute ago. So I will say we are seeing significant increases in the, pipe material costs and installation costs for contractors. I only see that getting worse. So, even if we stay on schedule for $1 million a year, say, just as a round number, we're going to be getting less and less pipe done in the ground for that same $1 million. That's already started. I was told today that it's 100 days out to get any pipe in stock or on site. So if we bid something right now, we couldn't do anything until 3 months from now. So looking at May. So that's definitely impacting how much work we get done. And I only see that getting worse as we compete for more materials and more contractors coming out of whatever federal stimulus comes forward and so on and so forth. I will say thank you to everybody on the call, especially for championing us for the ARPA funds, and we're putting that money to good use on the water side. I actually just got I don't know if you recall, but when I came on for that meeting, we had about, I'll call it 250 to 300,000 for the water treatment plant behind me in the picture for the SCADA upgrades. I got the similar quote a couple weeks ago for the wastewater, and it's 400,000. So if we have ARPA money come through or any other stimulus funds, it's already spent. So those are projects that we'd like to get sooner rather than later. Those projects, are on kind of the long-term outlook, but they're not, certainly not in the FY23 budget. So, if we do get funds available, putting them, right in, and sooner rather than later is, good practice.
So I read recently that there's money coming from the state for bridges. Will that help us with the Central Street culvert, that bridge, or is that not classified as a bridge?
It all depends on how they're going to, it is a bridge. We got a small bridge grant already from DOT for 500,000 on that.
Okay.
So it definitely is, whether or not they're looking to give us another 500,000 or something like that, I don't know. I haven't seen the kind of guidelines on how they're going to disperse any more money on bridges, but certainly we'd be, standing in line waiting. I should just mention, there's a couple other things that I'm sure you guys are hearing, out and about, but, we are testing for Pfas at the well. We are dangerously close to the upper limit of that MCL. The MCL is 20 parts per trillion, which is just an outrageous number. So, we have been monitoring it the past few months, and we're up to 19.8 recently. So that's just a rounding error away from being, out of compliance. So we did start, this was one of the projects that we started with the ARPA money, was just, kind of a general, what we would need to do for treatment. If we do end up going over the MCL and we need to add treatment to the Lincoln Street well, it will be several $1 million.
And Chuck, again, what is the compound? What's the chemical that's got the high reading?
So it's PFAS, which is per
Oh, it's a solvent. It's a solvent used
Yeah.
for cleaning. Yeah.
well,
It's a byproduct of the making of like non-stick, so Teflon, fits in
firefighting
fire
foam.
foam. Yeah, that's a big one. So you see it
It's-
a lot around Air Force bases.
I
It's
know
lit- it's
they
literally in
practice.
Yeah.
The fire department practiced in that area with their pump trucks. I don't know if they use the foam or not, but they used to like to use the hydrant by the well there to practice with their pumps. Have we
I don't-
like tracked where they might have used that foam at all in town?
I mean, I can ask the guys at the fire department. I have no
Yeah,
idea if they're, they're around. It's been banned for a while, but I'm sure.
And
it's-
Dan and Dean, that foam includes that compound?
That's been the primary driver of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it on like Air Force bases and, where they train, fire departments and stuff.
Right.
That's, it's definitely highly prevalent.
And do we
So-
have any concerns with the 40B project of increasing the PFAs?
Not in general. I mean, I don't know why they would. Certainly I don't know that they've been making, I guess just one place to start is they have not made this limit on wastewater facilities. So I'm sure that it is in wastewater outfalls, but they have not made, they have not put this limit on wastewater effluent. So it's literally only on the drinking water side that they're trying to deal with the problem, but it's much more prevalent in everyday life than your drinking water. So it's just, it's a forever chemical that, is never going to go away. And when you have, for example, we do have it at the treatment plant, but it's under 10 parts per trillion. So we're not as concerned that we're going to need to treat for it there. We did start sampling it in our biannual rounds at the landfill, which is very close proximity to the treatment plant, but it's there at very, very high levels, like, over, I forget the number, like 600
It's like
parts per trillion.
It wasn't that high, but it was like 150, 200.
No, in one of the wells, it was over 600, I think. But regardless, it's high, it's way over the limit. And so, but it's not, it's not prevalent not showing up at Gravelly Pond. So, it is what it is, but there will be, state funding available, but it's probably not going to, it's certainly not going to be 100%. And we'll be lucky if it's, more than low interest loan.
So Chuck, do you have is there a sense that the system that would need to be implemented to deal with that, is it, it require a larger facility than currently exists over at the Lincoln Well?
Yeah, so it's a pretty straightforward treatment process. It's granular activated carbon. So you have vessels that are filled with what we call GAC, and the water goes through it, and the PFAS binds to the GAC, separates out, and then it's treated. So it's easy to treat. It's just it's going to be a capital investment to build, an additional building or expand the existing buildings to house these additional, vessels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it might be a suitable reuse for that green building back there.
Yes.
Good luck getting a structural engineer to sign off on that, though.
Oh, no, you have to rebuild it.
That may be,
And that might be another source of contamination, whatever's in there. It's right by the well. I don't know what's still in there, but yeah, there might be some stuff in there.
Chuck, if you were to take a guess at how you've been seeing the trending numbers go up on this, do you think this is a 5-year kind of thing, or do you think this is a 18-month kind of thing, or where does it land?
It's right now, I would say it's month to month, but I would say if we do get lucky enough to make it 5 years, DEP is probably going to change the rules. And so they're saying on the down low, they won't say it in public anywhere, but if you walk in these circles, they're saying that, basically anything over 10, I feel like if they had it to do over again, they would make the limit 10, not 20. So that's what they're working towards. And they basically told anybody that's, in the high teens, plan on treatment. So that's what we should be doing.
So our interpretation is short.
Yeah.
So Chuck, have you been able to track, I might have missed it, but have we tracked that the levels have been, slowly increasing?
Yeah, I've started to ask questions like, how could that possibly be? Like, almost like, is there a lab error that's inherent in this policy? Because if you're testing to parts per trillion, it's just insane to try and, they have to clean this apparatus or whatever their process is and make it work for, if they're testing somebody else's water and then they test ours, theoretically there's QA QC involved, but it's, if you tinfoil hat theory is like, they just want to stay busy.
Yeah.
So
it would seem like there would have to be, sorry.
I was just gonna say, so we've been tracking, we did exploratory sampling about a year ago and it came in at 14 and now we're up to 19.8. And every time we've had to do the testing for like state reporting, it's been in the 18 to 19 range. So we're right there.
Yeah, it seems odd that it would vary unless there's a change in the source. And so I was wondering, I'm assuming there's got to be some agreement with the county club in terms of the types of, chemicals they are allowed or not allowed to use in their golf course.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect that this substance would show up in my fertilizers or anything else, but you take it one step further. So Deer Island, they make their pellets for out of the wastewater stream, and they've got a waiver on PFAS, and so they tested their pellets, and their pellets have PFAS in them. So there's no way that you can say that even if they're using the greenest fertilizer in the world, like this stuff is everywhere, and it's just it's one of those things. And they would have never been required to test for it. It's only recently that it's become kind of top of mind for all of these different regulating authorities.
Can we impose something on the county club?
I mean, they're certainly within our zone 1 and whatever. I mean, I don't know if impose is the word I would use. I would talk to them and see what they're up to and see if they've done any testing. I'm sure they haven't, but I would like to think that they'd work with us. But again, it's not, I hate to say it, but it's not going to matter because it's there. And once we test over the limit, we're going to be required to treat whether or not we can make the argument that, it was a one-off thing or, where we changed the process. They're going to say, no, it's not. So, on the one hand, even if we do come to treatment, we should probably, talk to them and find out, and, we will do that. But I also don't see it stopping the fact that we're going to have to add treatment.
But it might impact the extent of the treatment if they continue to use a fertilizer that's contains PFAS. We will definitely be, doing, we're in for testing no matter what from here on out. So we'll be seeing how it fluctuates and, why it would change or why it wouldn't change. But, it's kind of early in all that reconnaissance to know exactly what's causing it.
It might be a shakeup in the, might be a shakeup in the elementary school construction as well. That's shaken in the area.
It's kind of down gradient, but
Yeah.
I'd be more concerned. Honestly, I'm more concerned about the turf field at the school than I am the.
Oh, right. Yeah. Which we're
Chuck,
going
do you
to
have any
replace.
sense-
Yeah,
Do you have any sense of what the estimate would be to build in the treatment? Are we talking about a $2 million deal or, I mean, what is this? Any
Nate and I
reading?
have a bet. We before we said any, he said 4 million, I said 5 million. And so that means he's the low contractor. He gets to build it. But so, yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's, we settled on, it's probably 4 million of construction and then you're still in for, $1 million worth of engineering and design. So it's probably going to be a $5 million project. And keep in mind, just like other supply chain issues and just like, every other requirement that we, people that we answer to, we're not in this alone. There's a whole bunch of other cities and towns in the Commonwealth that, are going to be required to do treatment. So we're all going to be competing for the same engineers and the same contractors and the same media and the same principles to get this done. So, price is going to go up.
But I don't see it in your capital plan.
Well, we haven't been required. I mean, we literally just got the 19.8 reading 2 days ago. So
Okay.
last week, sorry, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's very recent.
Okay. Andy, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Well, just, not to go too far off track, but I do think, kind of checking back in with making sure we understand what the acceptable, program is at the county club, given their proximity to the well, because, when the middle high school was built, the old water building was, kind of deemed off limits by the state because of its proximity to the well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, it's definitely in our zone 1. Actually, I know there's been a lot of write-ups in the paper and other meetings for this water task force. In my opinion, one of the biggest ways that this task force can help the water system and the watershed is to put in some policies and procedures for monitoring the goings on in the watershed, because it's a big watershed and there's a lot going on, and it's certainly not something that we can look into every day, but we definitely have to keep it in mind.
We've seen, Chuck, that and by the way, folks, Nate raised this issue to Andy and I months ago when it was just on the fringe of many people in the Commonwealth. So kudos to you guys for being ahead of this thing. You've mentioned that it's been going up. Does it track a seasonal thing any way that we know of? I mean, that would be an indicator, because that's usually when the Essex County Club would be treating, right? So you saw starting in, I don't know when you started even measuring it, but.
So we were required to start in October. And like I said, we did exploratory sampling. The other thing to keep in mind is there's hundreds of these compounds. Massachusetts is only regulating based on 6. And so when we now are doing our sampling, we're only testing for the 6, and the sum of the 6 has to be less than or equal to 20. And so, that also has effects on treatment, but also there's a whole bunch that they aren't requiring us to test for yet. And once they start doing that, the numbers are going to go up. So, if we're start to do, say, the Pfas 20 instead of the Pfas 6, the numbers are going to go up accordingly because, there's probably more, versions of this same compound that we'll be testing. So we might see fluctuations based on that. We might see fluctuations based on seasonality. I think the places where this kind of contamination is most relevant, it's pretty constant because it's a remnants of 50 years ago when an Air Force base was active and they were, putting out fires on a regular basis using the firefighting foam. And, it's just there because it never goes anywhere. I've asked this question and nobody's given me a good answer, but it's out there. Are there plumes of this that are moving, through the soil like, MBTE or, the other kind of, VOC's compound, 1,4-dioxane, like what is the implications there? And nobody really has the answer because it's all too new. I wouldn't assume that it's seasonal, but I don't know.
Fact that
They were talking about that it could be
really a problem, right? Where did you start at? 15, Nate, did you say originally or something like that?
14.
like 14, yeah.
So you've gone up 30%. That's
Pretty
that
unexplained.
every 3 months, we got trouble.
There's some thought that it's based on that, where the well is drawn down to and how it's been cycled could be affecting it as well. But again, it's one of those things where we're so early into the science of it that they don't have a lot of data to really empirically prove that, one way or the other, if we've been running the well for, a long time and take our sample, does that negatively affect or positively affect it type thing? And the state has kind of scared you into not really testing a lot because once you have a bad sample, if you hit it 20 anytime, we would be required to treat the well. So you can't just go out and start doing, as much sampling as you want because you run the risk of, popping over 20.
See you next month.
Yep.
Yeah, this just sort of brings up 2 questions. One is how much of our town water comes from the Lincoln Street well as a percentage? And then I guess the question is, could somebody on the water task force or somebody as a private approach test this kind of off the record? I mean, there are a lot of people in town who work in biology companies and things like that who have access to chromatographs and everything. And I just wonder if that's a thought worth thinking about here.
So the well is about 40%. So we certainly couldn't shut it off in the summer. And I would say even to shut it off for, doing this type of projects, will cause some heartache around town. That's to say in a dry period, the gravelly pond behind me here in the picture, we do see it go down seasonally. And, this past summer we had very good, rain throughout the summer. So it stayed pretty full, but that's not the case on normal, kind of seasonal precipitation. In terms of testing, I can't tell somebody not to, test their tap, and I would never tell anybody not to test their tap. If we know about the sample and the results, though, I think we're kind of in for reporting it. I don't think we get to say it off the record.
Yep.
Would a more realistic concentration be taken at the the standpipe where the general water is versus each individual source? I mean, if we just do.
Well, they
Lincoln Street-
purposely did that.
Yeah.
They purposely said you have to test each source. If we say we had a well field like other, municipalities do, you
Yeah.
only have to do point of entry into the system. So I actually have thought about, is it cheaper to run the existing well line up to the standpipe and mix it? But we couldn't have any services between here and there. So when we did the math on that, it was still going to be a $5 million project. So you might as well treat the water.
Plus, overall, it would just, in general, help the water quality that's coming out of Lincoln Street well. So not only PFAS, but just the manganese.
Yeah, so
which
we
is-
get the byproduct of treating for the iron and manganese.
Yep.
This definitely seems like a wild card coming, and it's not a $150,000 pump or something. It's half the cost of a DPW building or something like that. So it's not, I don't think it's something we've been planning on. And as we look out 5 years on capital, 7-10 years out on capital, it's a big hiccup in the road. So probably need to be thinking about options here.
Yeah, like I said, there will be some state and federal funding available. So, it kind of remains to be seen what we're in for. We're still doing the, preliminary design analysis, and that'll have a cost component. So, my 5 million off the cuff number could be high, could be low. And so, those kind of questions still need to be answered. And then if you want another regulatory thing coming down the pipeline, any lead services in town are going to have to be replaced, which we do have. Our last count was about 100. There will be federal dollars available for those, but I'm not certain that it'll be 100% match. So I carried that in my budget as like, might be somewhere where we have to split off a couple $100,000, from the pipe work to take care of these services. But yeah, nobody wants to be the next Flint, Michigan.
I know that's like the federal funding is like a 50-50 split between the owner and the town. Is that how those connections? It's mainly the
It remains to be
connections.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are all service connections. So that's why we were trying to, we went through all of the tie cards for the individual services in town. We scanned them and, we updated that database. We made that database because it didn't exist before. And then, out of that, say we're about 100, we went out and verified the first couple. So, next year's capital, we're looking at School Street doing a cleaning and lining job. And there was 6, potential lead services on School Street. So we went and looked and, the records weren't accurate. They had already been renewed. So, we got out of those. So we've been looking at other, kind of clusters of them because it seems like, when people are building out a neighborhood, they were probably using the same materials. So, off the top of my head, I know there was some on Proctor Street. There was a couple on Eagle Head. There's probably a couple on Summer Street. So, when we look to do some of these, bigger capital projects, we were keeping that in the back of our mind that, if we say we had, 50 on Summer Street, I would move that up the list. But that didn't seem to be the case.
What vintage are those?
Lead usually predates the 50s. So usually
Okay.
when you 50s and maybe 50s could still be lead, but 60s, they were definitely using copper.
Okay.
But I will say we actually do add a corrosion inhibitor at the well. So, just to, massage any fears. So we use a corrosion inhibitor at both plants and the well. And it works. So it lines the inside of the pipe, whether it's lead or copper or anything else. And when we do lead and copper sampling, and I know that we've done it on lead service lines, when you sample those, they're non-detect, so they're 0. So the corrosion inhibitor is doing its job, but the issue you get is if you change the water chemistry, you can basically lose your corrosion inhibitor, and that lining that's on the inside of that service line will be gone. And then you will start leaching the lead, and that's when you have a flame. So we're not doing that. The water is safe to drink in terms of the lead. However, it's not going to matter again to the state and federal regulators.
Hmm.
What other questions do we have on capital?
Sarah, I just had a question. I know we've talked off and on about streetlights, and obviously they've been replaced. Well, the LEDs have been replaced, but there's been talk about some wiring issues. And I'm just kind of curious if there's been any long-term thought on how to address that or let it lie, or what the deal is.
Leave that with Nate.
So, yep, so basically when we took over, we had to buy the streetlight infrastructure from Grid when we upgraded to the LEDs. So we inherited all the existing issues with their streetlight system. Many of these streetlights that we're having issues with have direct bury wiring, so meaning it's not in a conduit. So really what we have to do, and it's something that Grid definitely still wants to control, is that anytime the work goes back to a control box, we have to have Grid on site. So we try to group, our outages and repairs as much as possible, because if we have to have a utility contractor to dig, they can do multiple in a day. So that really goes further than what the existing budget is. So it's a matter of, I try to group as much as possible to kind of get economy of scale in, replacing, fixing lights. Then we just have the others that, get hit during, we get the drunk driver on Beach Street, all the various, unfortunately, some plows have hit a couple. So it's going through and replacing all those, and then just upgrades to existing kind of, like on Tux Point, there's a couple lights that, from wind have blown off. So it's just the general upkeep of those, throughout town.
Mhm.
And how many do you envision updating a year?
Depends on the scope. If we have to do a full, replacing a full pole along with some underground work costs about $3,000 per light. So if, you dedicate the entire budget to that, you're maybe getting 8, 9, if a couple are under insurance, that's a bonus. If it's smaller, miscellaneous, you can, do normal change out of lights or, arms, you can get a bunch more. So it kind of varies depending on what the exact scope of work is. But, if we can start to target, right now it's more about catching up and replacing the bad infrastructure that we inherited from Grid. So I think it's going to take us a few years to catch up on that. But once we get caught up, I think it's just going to be a matter of addressing any that are, damaged by accidents, or just the random, LED failure, which is, pretty minor in terms of cost.
So is the catch-up issue, 20, 30 lights, 100 lights? What's the kind of rough magnitude of the problem?
We have probably about 400 lights, all inclusive of the downtown decoratives. So I think we have about 30 out right now, kind of spanning everything from wiring to broken heads. So, if we continued on, I think what we have, we can be caught up in the next, 3 to 4 years or so.
Mhm.
Were these costs our responsibility when National Grid owned the lights and we were under, traditional light bulbs and all that?
No, we just paid for the electric, the increased electric, but really what our saving grace is that, with the controls and the LEDs, we've reduced the electricity bill quite significantly. I think it's by over 50%. And, with the controls, we dim them at night, 80%, which is And if anyone's been out, you know, between 11 and 5 a.m., it's really dependent on sunrise. It's imperceptible because of the way LEDs work in their light spectrum and how they disperse light. You can really reduce the amount of power to them while still maintaining, you know, a pretty good luminescence from them.
But this maintenance
So we were,
sounds like it could gain speed quite rapidly and, you know, eliminate the benefit of that savings. I guess that's where I was headed, was did we evaluate that when we made the decision? I don't recall, it was a while ago.
so we were spending right around 100,000 for when National Grid owned them for the cost. That was their charge to us annually.
Electric bill,
That was the electric bill.
right.
And now our electric bill is, you know, in the 30,000 range, and we're now budgeting another 30 or 25,000 to start for repairs.
Right,
So we're still got a net of about 40,000 of savings.
right. Okay,
When we do the repairs, how long do they last?
I mean, and all the ones we've repaired have continued to work. It's just a matter of getting to all the repairs and tracking down where the exact issue, where the break in the wire is. You know, it's not always right at the light. It could be 100 feet from the light, but you don't know it until you know, track it down.
But is the expectation once they're in conduits and stuff that it will last like 10 years or something, or?
Oh, 25 years plus.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anything that we, you know, the LEDs, I think have I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a, you know, many years, over 10 years, you know, for the LED life.
Okay.
okay.
Do we need to talk about the capital budget for vehicles? And what that plan is?
I mean, I'll just give you, you know, we have a couple left to replace. One big one that's, you know, scheduled for next year. You know, that price has gone up on us over the last couple of years just because of, you know, supply chain issues like everything else. The used and new car market is crazy. That extends to big dump trucks. And then, you know, in some of the out years of the 5-year plan, we do have, you know, some of our larger equipment, the backhoe and the front end loader. You know, those are going to have to be replaced. I could see those getting pushed a year, but you know, we'll keep them there where they are for now, just to make sure, you know, they're still running and we're still doing the upkeep. I will say, you know, I think Maury mentioned, you know, kind of the new DPW facility and, you know, that being on the, you know, horizon, I guess, at least. You know, all of our stuff right now is outside, and so
Yeah,
even,
absolutely. Yeah.
I was saying to, you know, I can't remember if it was Mark or somebody else, but you know, like our new sidewalk tractor that we got a couple of years ago, you know, we had to do over $1,000 worth of repairs to that just from it sitting outside to get it going for the winter.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
all the starters and solenoids, those all seize up and you just have to replace them. So, you know, that's certainly a, you know, maintenance issue going forward for as long as we, you know, stay outside or, you know, don't either, you know, rebuild what we have or move. And so that's just kind of the way it is. So I think we've made good strides, and, you know, I'm definitely not complaining about our fleet. It's pretty modern. It's pretty new. You know, aside from me and Nate getting around in the hand-me-down from the cops, nobody's really complaining. So you know, we're good, but, you know, we're aging quickly. You know, we're quicker than we should be. I'll definitely say that.
Well,
Given the,
if you thought about if you had to leave the fire trucks outside every year, you'd lose 40% of your lifetime on them. It's really evidences you guys need a facility. We need to figure that part out, in my humble opinion.
But it strikes me that it's seems like it's projecting far enough out that we may have to do something in the interim. I mean, if it's 10 years out,
It's slated for FY '26.
yeah, I don't know.
That's-
That might be when it gets budgeted. It might get built in another 3 or 4 years after
Oh,
that.
okay.
In my personal and humble opinion, it needs to get addressed before the Essex Elementary. And that clock is running.
Fast.
And it's my understanding we have budgeted in this year's budget a study of figuring out where the DPW should be located. Is that correct?
So I think we changed the scope of that to actually be most town facilities. So to take a harder look at dispatches, or not dispatch, sorry. That was a Freudian slip. The fire station, the police station, council on aging. Is the council on aging within that scope, or is it just public safety?
Yeah.
And town hall,
Senior center,
hall,
town
yeah.
hall, yeah.
senior center. Okay. So,
So-
yeah, great, go ahead.
No, it's fine. So yeah, the idea is to develop that master plan of what facilities are going to go where and map that out so that we have a clear direction and consensus so that we can start.
And will we lay out the timing of, figuring out which facilities go when and,
Right.
Yeah.
That would be part of that.
okay. And when do we think that study is going to be done?
So assuming we get the green light at town meeting, is that a 6-month effort, Nate and Chuck?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought it
Yeah.
was in the 2022 budget.
we have a DPW siting analysis for School Street compost that was included in this budget that we're actually doing a kickoff for next week. So that's going to look exclusively at the School Street compost site
Okay.
for suitability for a DPW, which is going to be
Well,
a
there-
pretty deep dive.
There is an alternative
Along,
analysis with
yeah.
the existing site. But so there's a component of evaluating those two sites for the explicit use of the DPW. But it's smaller money than the $100,000, it's $50,000 was that scope. But a lot of that, not a lot of it, but there's money involved in that is for a survey, for borings, for kind of exploratory. So that would be useful, even I say in the event that a DPW or if DPW facility does not
Public
go at
safety
School
or-
Street, we will still have information that will be valuable that'll come out of that. And hopefully it'll give us a head start should that be the outcome for a DPW.
So where in the budget, in the capital budget is that study, Greg?
It's under, so if you look at the FY '23 capital improvement plan.
Yep.
You see DPW facility design.
Okay,
So the request, so originally it was going to be for the design, final design, but we changed that to 100,000, and you see over to the right margin, that facilities master plan.
okay. Got it. You changed the headings on the 5-year and on the 1 year.
We're not consistent.
No, it says facilities on the 5-year, and then it's more specific on the 2023.
Oh, yeah.
So Chuck, if this issue of storage outside is as material as you summarized, and the new DPW facility is as far away as 7 or 8 years, which is what I am gathering from the discussion, shouldn't we be doing something now to protect at least some of the equipment more effectively than we are? I mean,
So there was
if it's making a difference of 30 or 40% in the life cycle of the equipment, that's a substantial number when you go over all the equipment you've got.
Yeah, so we had talked, actually, a couple of years ago, we did have a figure in there for a, kind of like a FEMA cold storage building, metal type building that, would theoretically be able to be moved should that, not become the site. I think we do need to look at kind of reinstituting that, but it didn't quite make it into this budget.
Do we still have money left? Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, order of magnitude of that kind of thing?
I was thinking it was around 75 back then, call it 100. I know I've seen other ones go up for like 25 grand, not as big as we would want, but so, if I triple it.
Yeah.
The other thing that we had thrown around, Greg, and you might know better than me, is did Byam keep anything in his budget for going up at the treatment plant and building a facility for his, his boats and everything? We had thrown that around anyway at one point as a
Right.
option for, I could certainly keep like sidewalk tractors and stuff like that up there. Should it be built?
I think that's a good point, because those seasonal items, those, narrow seasonal items just can be stored, and I gather make quite a bit of difference in their useful life and their repair costs. Even if it didn't cover all the equipment, I think we could cover some of the more sensitive and seasonal equipment.
Yeah,
Greg, I thought we'd already funded part of this. Is there any budget left and any money left in the account for the DPW site?
So my memory a couple of years ago when we had that line item was that it got cut due to COVID.
Before that, we had money.
I don't know. I don't think it exists anymore. I'm not sure.
Can you help us here, Andrea?
I thought we had talked about 80K.
That's what I
Sarah, to your
thought,
point,
yeah.
About 5 years back for like a
Shed.
pole barn or something to
Yeah.
get some of this equipment out of the weather. And I don't know if the problem is weather or temperature, but that was my recollection.
Yeah, I think that money got reallocated is my recollection.
Do you know,
Yeah.
Andrea?
That's my reflection. I'm just trying to go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
See if I can find that.
But it would be good. I mean, is there a possibility if it's not in some sort of bucket that we have in front of us right now, can we consider adding it?
You certainly
I
can.
think that's a good idea.
Do we have extra money if we get more ARPA funds for the infrastructure piece? I mean, does that give us a little more money to free up to do something like this?
Can it be used for this kind of thing?
No, I'm saying the stuff we've budgeted for like pipes and
I
stuff.
see.
We're getting the
Substitute.
money from the
Yep.
federal government. Does that free anything up?
Right, so if we were able to secure additional either state or federal infrastructure dollars for water pipe and sewer plant work, then we could reallocate some of the dollars that you currently see for those purposes to something like this.
So maybe do it. Sorry. You
That's
can-
right. So I don't know if we will know. I doubt we will know in time before town meeting. Whether or not we'll be successful there. I'm hopeful that we will get certainly some additional dollars. I just don't know the magnitude and how long it's going to take. It could be a few years. But I think we will see additional dollars. But I can't guarantee you when that's going to happen.
So can we adjust something by 100K downwards, assuming the funds, and then creating the 100K for
If
storage?
I just had to
coverage?
do it, I could offer, the way this conversation is going, what I would say is the $248,000 or $45,000 that I had for a vehicle next year, I could give some of that back and make it a, $100,000 line for a building replacement. And then I would say, either A, I'll get a smaller truck, or B, we can move the, the new truck to FY24 or something like that. Right now, I'm not showing anything in FY24. And the reason that I, kind of backloaded this was, I didn't want to be asking for, a $10 million facility the same year I'm asking for, $500,000 worth of equipment. So that's kind of how I was thinking when I was building it out. But if we're thinking that that's going to be much longer time horizon, then I agree, it's more important to get the temporary building in now. So, that's irrelevant to what happens with the ARPA funds or the water funds.
Okay.
I would, like I said, I have a $400,000 task order on my desk for just SCADA improvements at the wastewater plant. Like, in my mind, as long as you guys are with me, the ARPA funds that we get are already spent on water and sewer. So,
I mean, one thought process on this is that it really is a temporary enclosure. And if you were able to buy something or install something and even have to replace it once or twice before a DPW building gets built, I'm kind of thinking of a continuum here. On one end, you have a tarpaulin. On the other end, you have a Morton metal building. And, you walk around boat yards, they have all of these shrink wrap buildings that they put boats in. And you might get 3 or 4 years out of that, and then just have to go and build another one. And they're ugly and they're environmentally nasty, but they protect equipment. And you've got a pretty good investment in rolling stock if you can get it out of the weather.
Yeah,
And
and
get 3 years out of it. That might be worthwhile thinking.
Nate and I haven't put a ton of brain power into this yet, but there's certainly alternatives besides the metal buildings. There could be fabric roof buildings, one built on blocks and stuff like that. We may be able to get. We should look on the, Andrew will like this. We'll look on the state bid list and see what the contractors are for convys. But so there are options. We haven't, to be perfectly honest, we haven't, gone in, full steam on that yet.
Well, I think you're hearing some support for doing that look-see, Chuck.
Yep.
And sort of recycling back here to see what you've come up with. I mean, between what Maury just said and what I think the general tenor of this conversation is, it's encouraging us to at least create some kind of temporary protection for some of the equipment.
How about we build a dome over the whole site, and then when we're gone, we can put athletic fields underneath the dome.
Oh, dear.
Actually, see if an athletic company in Maine or New Hampshire, Vermont or Mass is getting rid of their inflatable building and buy it on the cheap.
Yeah, I'm in.
Anything else on the Capitol?
Do we forget anything, Nate?
Don't think so.
Is the operations budget final? Are you guys going to make any more changes, or can we vote on it? We only vote once.
So does operational include salaries or no?
Yes.
No.
Where's your issue on
So-
salaries, Chuck?
Well, Greg and I have a conversation that we need to have, but
Right, so in the DPW, in the highway salaries,
Okay,
then maybe, well, then it could impact water and sewer as well.
so we should hold off voting.
Can we do sanitation and can we do some parts? Sarah, can we do some parts of the budget?
Say the consensus is that the budget is fine, subject to, if you have recommended salary changes, we'll
Right.
consider those separately.
I don't want to vote on a budget and then have to go back and re-vote it. We
Right.
did that last year and it created
Yep.
all sorts of confusion, I felt.
Right, but we can
I mean-
note that you're in pretty good
Right.
shape in terms of agreement to what's there now. we can at least know it's not going to be a heavy lift to approve. We just need to finalize the salary numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you're holding me to every single line, then I would say definitely don't vote. If you're holding me to the bottom line, I feel pretty good about that. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
It's the bottom line that gets approved at town meeting, so.
So, yeah, I think we can keep the bottom line numbers. It's just a matter of if we have to shuffle some things between salaries and operational to make it work.
but that's something we would look
Well,
at when we're approving it.
yeah.
We,
Okay.
Yeah,
then That's fine.
yeah. We like to have good numbers.
Okay.
Okay. So what type of time frame are you thinking?
We're probably, certainly by the middle of February, we should be in pretty good shape.
Okay,
We should be able to
okay.
present some final numbers then.
Okay,
And I guess the only other thing, while we've got Nate here, because he's been working on some other facilities.
Yep.
And it came up the other night at our selectmen's meeting, the town hall generator. So we've got that in 24.
mhm.
Okay.
So I'm thinking with what Chuck just offered on the truck. So if he takes 100 for some sort of a structure, we could take another 100 from that for the generator, and he can have the 124 for a truck, and we can work on the remainder for the rest of the truck in 24. So the generator at town hall has been undersized for years. It only does a portion of the building, and probably even more concerning, it's in a low-lying spot that is subject to high waters. So it makes a whole lot of sense to get that replaced sooner rather than later. And so I'm just, as Chuck was offering the truck delay a year and what we would do with
But
those
I think he
dollars.
was offering it if we had a temporary facility built. in.
Right.
So where
Right,
do
so-
we get that?
He's doing both, the temporary facility and the generator.
Yeah, but it's
So-
That
For
money.
the low cost of a truck.
basically taking the whole 250.
Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
Sorry, Chuck.
I don't drive those trucks anyway.
I don't know, Chuck, you could end up on roller skates at this point.
You don't want to see that.
Now, come on, you're a skier. You can do roller skates.
Definitely cannot.
okay, so you guys will talk about that a little more and,
Yeah, we can hash that out.
Yeah,
okay.
Nate, what's the size of that generator?
I think it's a 20 or a 30. It's small. Yeah, it only does the police station, the selectman's room, and coincidentally, the outlets that my workstation is plugged into. So, and emergency lighting. So we would ideally want to size it so that we can tie over all of the heating, since we have the new heat pumps, and then so we'll have to certainly look at what that's going to involve. And then any of the backside electrical work of tying in the last of the panels. So,
And it's a shame the Lincoln Street generator would be perfect.
yeah.
Timing probably. not.
My home generator is 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Came in handy last week.
There are a
I know, I
couple
walked
people,
around town and heard all the generators going.
You guys got to get batteries. I have batteries.
I'm getting batteries.
How long enough?
One question is, I know we always talk about capital planning and sort of assessment of our infrastructure and that sort of thing. And it seems like these things pop up and they're sort of wild cards sometimes from year to year. And I'm just wondering, how do we understand this generator thing, and I'm thinking more about the next 3 or 4 years. How do we avoid more of these things coming up? And I mean, I know things break, but
War is ready to pay.
So, I mean, one thing that we've done, and you see it in this budget, and it's a small number year to year, but it adds up, is we have a storm damage line now. We didn't have that when I first got here. And this past weekend, all of that, there's significant damage on Ocean Street. That's going to cost significant dollars. I would not be able to really make that work in my existing budget without that storm damage line. And so I don't know if there's a way to kind of pad a facility maintenance line or a facility capital line or something like that to kind of squirrel away some dollars, subject to, annual approval. But, that's kind of what I feel like we're doing on the storm damage side.
and I guess
And
this
it makes
is
it
more of a
easier for-
mechanical, this is more of a mechanical question for Greg and Andrea, but is this basically a reserve type thing, over
No.
time?
No
Because it's-
reserves.
No, but I'm just thinking if you're budgeting every year and you're budgeting low or you're budgeting high or you're just not getting it, and I don't know, these things pop up and we sort of shift one thing around, shift another thing around. I'm not sure what's the best. Well, first of all, I think it's engineering information, a pretty good assessment of what we have around town for infrastructure and what we think is going to need work. But then apart from that, how do you deal with it?
Well, if we need a larger maintenance budget, and what happens if we don't use the maintenance budget in a year? Does that roll over or does that?
No,
No,
it's all
because of
the
it.
free cash.
Goes,
Free cash.
goes to the reserve fund.
I recall, just as an example, this generator being mentioned, in the last year or two. I think there's lots of little things that are always percolating out there. They sometimes make it into our conversation, but they, because maybe it hasn't reached a critical point, it doesn't enter the budget. But to your point, Maury, if it's percolating, we ought to at least account for it in, another year.
Right. Because
And I think
it's-
another one like that is the fire station generator. That one's, I think we've been talking about it for the last few years. That one's, I'd say, just as bad as the town hall, just same vintage. It's old. We're always making repairs on it. It's not something I would want to rely on, for a long duration.
What kind of repairs though? I mean, because, all stuff requires repairs, but I'm
No,
assuming you're talking
Yep.
about stuff that might be more major and frequent and annually and that kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's whether it's a starter, whether it's, the timing on it, things, they can't get certain parts because it's so old type thing. So they have to kind of find another
well,
way to
he
fix
has-
it.
He has it in the 2024 capital budget.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
Missed
the
it.
fire station generator, I think.
I put both generators
Oh,
in
yeah,
24,
okay.
so.
I guess I'll offer, I think, now that, it's more streamlined, I think, under Nate and the, monitoring these annual budgets and, taking care of these things firsthand. Before, even this year, we get a call from the fire chief saying, hey, this isn't working. And we have to go over that. Like now it's going to be part of our routine and, part of our, we've been working towards this goal and I think now we're there. So
Yeah.
I would anticipate us being able to, come in with these things more timely.
Good. We don't like surprises.
We try to avoid the surprises, but they're going to exist, I'm afraid. It's hard to be 100%.
Right.
Sarah, I think Ann had her hand up.
Oh.
Oh,
And-
sorry.
and my question is, are there temporary things that we could do? Say, build a retaining wall around the generator so that it doesn't flood? Or I'm sorry, I walked into the meeting late and I don't know what's been said. But I hope we are considering at least a study to protect the wastewater treatment plant from storms. Just not replace it, not find out the best possible solution for our wastewater, but just keep it from flooding with retaining walls or whatever. And
So
I'm
in the-
arguing that we need to do something that's good rather than something that's perfect.
Yep. So
Thanks.
we've looked at flood stop barriers for the treatment plant. We've applied for grants, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Like that would be good, if not perfect. So, you know, we haven't committed to putting those in the budget. We've been trying to get, you know, FEMA grants and things like that to, you know, fund that. On the, you know, we didn't really get into it too much on this call, but, you know, in a couple of years, we're going to be doing a, you know, $2 to $3 million upgrade on the treatment plant. And I would say close to half of that is earmarked for flood proofing the equipment that is vulnerable. And I think that's kind of where we have to start. So, you know, that in addition to these flood barriers would be, you know, kind of my short-term solution. And then, you know, in the 15 to 20 year solution, you know, are we building walls or levees or dams or, you know, whatever? You know, that's definitely a thought.
But right now, as the storms get heavier, I would like to see us push for that. That is, as far as I know, the most vulnerable of our major centers. And the one, something that would make a real mess if it actually were to flood. And I would like to see at least an engineering study for how to protect it, what the best way to protect it is, rather than waiting for somebody to give us money to do it.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Thank you and good night. Sorry.
No, I mean, the treatment plan definitely keeps me up at night. But you know, I think we're there. It's not neglected. I'll put it that way.
It is some protection from the train tracks.
Yeah,
So
it
Chuck,
won't
you-
matter when it's coming up through.
Comes around.
That's just it. The
Yeah.
walls would have to be that high, I think, at least up to the top of that railroad embankment, right?
Yeah, they'd have to be higher because
Yeah,
once
have to
the
be higher.
railroad embankment comes, you get washed underneath. It's
Yeah, that's never flooded. It's never flooded over the railroad tracks, but I think the new flood elevation is pretty close.
Well, keep in mind, it doesn't have to come over. It's going to come from below,
Through.
from the different things that are connected to the harbor.
so
Chuck, is Ann's
Not-
point correct that the most vulnerable facility of important substance is the waste treatment facility? To flooding, that is that?
As much as Ann and I both love the rotunda, I would say yes, the wastewater treatment plant is definitely
More so than town hall.
I was just wondering about town hall. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Well, more critical.
for my money, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's all. I mean, the catastrophic damage that would occur if the treatment plant were to go out. You know, it's not just at the treatment plant; it will be upstream of that system. You know, everybody's house in the village, everybody's everything, will become the low point. So yeah, it certainly is.
Okay.
and our alternative is just to dump raw sewage if the plant were to fail.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Correct,
hoping
yeah.
that it fails in a state that you're dumping the sewage. If it's just backing up the sewage, it's going upstream. So, you know, it's going to come out in town hall. It's going to come out at the library. It's going to come out at, you know, other places.
Lower toilets,
So-
basement toilets.
Glad I'm on a hill.
Me too.
High man wins, low man loses.
I don't know if it's ever been considered. I know Tom Keogh and I talked probably 5-7 years ago when we were worried about Central Street Dam and water backing up, about possibly putting in like a temporary levee or a break right under the railroad tracks, and wondering if that was a choke point, and if you prevented water from coming in on peak tides there, could you actually protect that whole inner harbor area, town hall and the water treatment plant? And obviously, if the water crested over the railroad tracks, all bets would be off, but that opening seems to be where most of the water comes in from the ocean. So I don't know if that's been looked into, but if you get out in the Connecticut Valley and drive along Mass Pike and places, you certainly see, temporary places where they can slip partitions in to block the flooding of the Connecticut River. And wonder if the same thing might be considered here.
Probably pretty close. If it doesn't come
Yeah.
up through Reed Park and, around the hardware store.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be one spot to look for sure.
Right.
Anything else on DPW?
Thank you very much for all the work you do, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
So Sarah,
Good night.
could you just summarize me, where have we gotten to on this particular portion of the conversation? I've gotten a sense of urgency both from Ann's comments and Maury's comments and so forth, with
they-
respect to the treatment facility.
Well, Chuck needs to go back and talk to Greg and see if there's a place to put it in the capital budget. And
No,
take something else out.
this level of study I can handle in I have a professional services line and I have, capital money that's, for the plant and, things that break and stuff, so forth. I'll handle it out of that. I don't need a new budget or line
Okay.
item.
So this is something you can handle actually within your current funds.
Yeah, I'm not looking at, $1 million study here. Like, I think a lot of the work has been done. There's been a lot of, it was before my time, but Greg, you were involved with the MVP stuff and the vulnerability of the plant. And I think it's just a
Right.
matter of, I won't call it a light lift, but it's something that we could handle with one of our consultants on a professional services level, master services agreement. It's not, it's not a 6-figure study, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one grant that we had applied for temporary barriers, that we can easily dust that off and see if the MVP program would fund that. FEMA did fund it because it wasn't permanent. They only wanted to fund permanent structures. They didn't want to fund a barrier that just went up during storms.
How much was that, Nate? How much were those flood stops? It was like a couple
It was like
hundred grand.
It was like 300, I want to say, but it was like the outlay for the permanent was more than our share was more on a permanent than it would have been to just outright buy the flood stop barriers ourselves.
Right, yeah. So I think the temporary ones were around 150 or something, or.
Yeah, we'll have to dust it off.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and
Yeah,
look.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I guess I'll stop short of saying I have a line item for $150,000 if we do one of those, but we can certainly do the study.
Right.
We can certainly, see what kind of time horizon we're looking at. Like I said, a lot of the vulnerable equipment that we would rely on in a severe storm, will be flood proofed when we do the upgrade. So that's definitely going to happen. If there's additional measures that need to be taken, that's what this study would let us know. And what comes out of that study, maybe that gets bumped up to next year's list or a, future grant, but so we'll have to look at it in that way.
Sounds good. Anything else on DPW? Well, thank you, Chuck and Nate.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Well,
you spending your time to re-educate us.
This is well organized. Thank you. Great.
Yeah, thank you very much for it. A lot going on here.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment.
Thanks.
Stop by anytime. And Nate gave a couple of guys the tour. I think we need to get the rest of you guys in, especially for the wastewater tour is the one no one wants to take.
I'll do that.
I can see that from my house.
Sarah, may I jump in just a second?
Yes,
I'm
Becky.
I just want to say thank you, Nate and Chuck. Reiterate that we are really fortunate to have you two with your levels of expertise here. in our town. Thank you. And I'll take that wastewater treatment plant tour.
I will.
With your boots.
Great.
Sounds good.
And me too, me too.
Love to.
All right.
Yeah.
Peter, let's make a date with those guys.
We'll wait until after you approve the budget. But, you might not think of us the same way after.
Thank you. and Good night.
All right, have a good one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item on the agenda is to review minutes, which I did not get out to people, so I will try to do that really soon. I was really backed up last week. Next meeting date and subject. Greg, do we know who's coming in? So this is the 20th,
So the
27th.
27th, we have police lined up.
Okay,
And then fire was going to be on the 10th of February.
okay.
And so I didn't know on the 3rd of February, I know that some people are out, but if you wanted to do Park and Rec and Harbor, or is there not a need for Park and Rec?
Oh, there is, I
Oh,
think, to
yes.
talk about
Yeah,
the
okay.
fields.
That's what I
Um,
thought. That's
I
what-
think, Maury, you're out on February 3rd?
Hang on, sorry, I was just checking that. No, I'm good. I was thinking of
Okay.
March 3rd. I'm sorry, I got
Okay.
I got 1 month ahead.
Okay,
So,
So,
yeah,
y-
I'm good.
so we
Sarah,
can do,
Sarah, I'm out on January 27th.
Right.
That's,
Oh, that's right. Peter was.
which is
on.
why we switched move the fire, and
thank
so
you.
we'll do the police, then we'll do Park and Rec and Harbor on February 3rd and fire on February 10th. And I will get those agendas done so that I don't get in trouble
Okay,
and get my Zoom account scheduled.
Yes. Lock them in early.
So I'm sorry, Sarah. So police on the 27th, Harbor,
Yep.
Parks, Rec on the 3rd, and fire on the 10th. That's the way we're lining up.
Yep, is everyone good with that?
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Great.
And then the library, what are your thoughts on the library?
I don't think we need a library to come in. I mean, I certainly took pause when I saw the 5-year capital plan, and there's 10 million for the expansion of the library. But I think it's premature to talk about that, because
Yeah, it is.
doesn't somebody have to die before they can get the property?
But yes.
As crass as that may sound.
And she's doing very well right now, I might add.
And Greg, do we know anything more on the church? The
No,
Cornerstone
we-
Church building?
Yeah, we haven't heard from them lately, no.
Okay,
That's actually good, isn't it, Greg? I mean, if we did, we'd have to do something.
Well, yeah, again, it's just one of those items though that we just need a decision on. It just would be nice to know one way or the other.
Yeah.
We need to start nailing some of this stuff down.
and we certainly have it locked in at a low price based on the rise of real estate recently.
That is true. That is true.
Greg, do you feel it's still the most desirable option?
No, my first choice was the Masons still.
Yeah.
But we can't get traction there.
Yep.
Every time we say we're going to sit down and talk, we sit down and then we don't have any follow-up.
Did
They
we
just-
do the assessment of the Masonic Hall that we were
Yes, we
gonna
did.
do for them?
Yeah.
Did that check out with the value of the building? And
It was lower than what they were hoping for, but it was in striking distance. I think they're asking for they were asking for $1 million. This came in at, I want to say 875. Something like that. But they haven't reached consensus as a group as to what they want to do.
Mm.
You know, so I don't know. There's the
Can we
church is
have-
a great, the church is a great building and has,
Right.
would make wonderful space. Its big flaw is lack of parking, and it will flood in the basement when that
Okay,
Sawmill Brook has a deluge. I can cope with the flooding. It's not that critical, but the parking is a drawback.
all over town.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
there's never been any thought about using the community center as a senior center? That seems underutilized to me, but I could be wrong.
It is underutilized. It's too small for a senior center. I mean,
Okay.
I know we shouldn't be too choosy when we're desperate for a space, but it really is too small.
Okay. So if that area were developed at some point, it might be able to be expanded, but that's.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? Sorry for my yawning.
We've had some late nights, it's allowed.
Sarah, I wanted to mention that I did not receive an agenda. I don't know if there's something with my email address, but I just went on the town website to get the link, but
I didn't send it out. I announced at the last meeting, I posted it, so I assumed people would get it
Okay,
off the
okay.
website.
I see. Okay, that's
Do
how.
people
okay.
want me to send it out?
I got it.
Okay,
No,
okay.
If we can get it, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to post them earlier, so I will go ahead and post the ones for 127, 23, and 210.
Okay.
So
I
that they'll
just
be
want to
out
make sure
there.
it wasn't an issue with my email.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
the prior meetings, I hadn't been posting them early enough, so I felt I needed to send them to people to make sure they were
Okay.
aware of them.
Gotcha.
And Andrea, do we expect over the next 3 weeks to have anything regarding reserve fund transfers of any type?
Hopefully, so far I only have those, the one we talked about, and then possibly the professional services. But yeah, I'll let you know in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, if we need to put in professional services at some point,
Yeah.
just give me a heads up,
I will.
so I can get it on an agenda.
Sounds good.
But I can amend agendas and not get my hand wrapped too hard.
I'll let you know the day of. Can't do that.
Are the next quarterlies due soon? Are they gonna? come
That's
out?
right.
Yes, I'll have
Yes.
those out no later than Monday.
So I can put that on the agenda for 127.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jean, for reminding that. Greg, were you going to say something?
No, that's right. It can wait. It can wait.
Okay. I just need to know if there's other stuff I need to add to my agendas.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, but I need to confirm
Okay,
something first. I'll talk to you offline about it.
okay, fine. No problem.
Oh, I know I talked to Greg earlier. I have the auditors ready. So when we want to meet with them, so we were thinking March timeframe. So kind of like after budget stuff, have them come out and go over the financial statements and.
Okay,
So I'll throw out some Thursday dates for them for March, and then I'll let you know
okay.
if that works.
And we don't know what's going to happen to town meeting date, right, Greg?
We don't. If I was betting today, I would bet that it's going to get postponed.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I know that would be music to the planning board because they are struggling to pull together the amendments that they would like to propose in time.
Right.
So I would not be surprised. If it was-
And they're aware of the issue once they hold a public hearing.
Right.
Okay. Though nobody would complain. We had 64% more applications in 2020, one that we did in 2020. So we may need to relook at the ZBA budget.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Uh-huh.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah, I was working on the report, the annual report, and I was looking at it and I said, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, the Concom had a big jump. I don't think it was quite that big, but it was a jump.
But I'll take a look at the budget because I think that we want to increase our fees.
Right.
And I think that we may need to increase the registry fee line and,
Yeah.
based on how many we're registering. But I'll look at that and make a note of that.
Sarah, what's driving that? Is that just more construction happening and more people doing things, or what's the driver on that? Would you guess?
Well, I think around 13 of those applications were for swimming pools and sports courts. And we're also seeing a lot of people doing additions, and I think it's a result of COVID, of people having been in their homes, and they want, the athletic clubs were closed, they want more outside space, and I think people are working remotely, so they want more outside
Home
space, more, house space, and
Yep.
yeah, it's crazy. But the big jumper is the swimming pools and the sports. I mean, we've never seen sports courts before. We had 4 this year.
Wow.
And swimming pools, I think we had 9 or 10. And we're trying to get changes made in the recodification, so we don't need to issue a special permit for straightforward swimming pools, that meet all of the code requirements and setback requirements, but I don't know if that's going to make it or not, but that was something we were, but it's, and everything we're seeing is messy. It's just messy. And the other thing we're seeing is people wanting to divide up land.
Sarah, do you have an increase because of this? If you have a non-conforming building for whatever reason, you need to go to the ZBA, even if you're not increasing the non-conformity, which was the
Right.
case previous. You could just go get a building permit unless you were increasing the non-conformity. Now you have to go before the ZBA, right?
That's never changed. It's always been the case.
That has not always been the case. I'm sitting in an edition that tells you that ain't always been the case.
I don't think the bylaws,
Last
I
2
don't-
years.
no, the bylaw hasn't changed. It may be that the building department's not issuing the permits.
Oh, well, they had a lawsuit in the Commonwealth about it, and different people
Oh, okay.
interpret it different ways, but my understanding was
There was a
Manchester
court
was
case.
interpreting it that you've got to go to the ZBA now. You can't just say, I'm not getting any closer to the property line, so don't worry about it. But maybe it's not a big deal. I don't know.
Well, 2/3 of our properties are non-conforming.
Man,
Because we
that's a
put
good
in,
thing, by the way. Read the subdivision control law and anticipate if you laid it out all over town, what you'd be living at.
Yeah, suburbia.
We did that.
wait till they make the changes for the multifamily housing within a half a mile of the train station.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting debate.
Yes. So will the ADU changes. We had a horrible meeting last night on an ADU application. Absolutely horrible.
Sorry, what's that mean? ADU?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Oh,
We-
I saw that. I saw that on your agenda, yeah.
We had a very restrictive bylaw with respect to accessory dwelling units. We had a property that crossed all the Ts and dotted all the Is, and every single neighbor complained. And it was all owners living in the house and the accessory dwelling, it was a couple and a sister who wanted to buy a place together. They wanted separate living units, and
Yeah.
it was crazy. So that will be interesting on town meeting floor when they want to change it. That's all I can say.
So what happened with that case last night? Is that,
It was approved.
it was approved?
Was
It was
that on
approved.
Lincoln Street, Lincoln Ave?
Yes,
Yeah. Weren't there two of them on Lincoln Ave that you were dealing with?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
And there's another one coming up next month for a two-family on Lincoln Ave.
I'm glad I moved off Lincoln Ave 30 years ago.
That's 90 School Street.
Yeah, but it's the corner of Lincoln Ave.
The major
yeah.
house, yeah.
It's the same crowd.
Must be something in the water over there.
Well, that's a street that looks so different now than it did 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The size of the dwellings from demolition to rebuild.
Yeah.
3x, you know. So.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's amazing what people are doing. Okay, anything else? On topic or off topic, apparently.
Yeah, we strayed a little bit. Didn't we?
Hey, it's interesting.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the formal meeting.
Do I
I'll
have a
second. I'll
Okay,
second.
take a roll call vote. Peter?
Yep.
Dean?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
And Sarah votes yes. And Gail, just for the record, Mike Pratt did not attend tonight.
I figured that out.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks. Thanks,
Bye for
everyone.
now.
All right.
See you-
Can't get by me.
see everyone
Good night.
next week.
Good night, everybody.
Later. Good night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right.